Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Hobby Hangout on this Friday. Today I am joined by our casting lead, Tanner Thomas, and Tony. We're going to move into some announcements real quick, and then we're going to jump right into everything. Schedule. So as you can see, our stream schedule is the same as normal. On Wednesdays, we have Dev Hangout at 10. Thursdays, we have Get Your Paint On with Jordan. Watch him paint some really cool stuff. January 28th, we have another staff showdown. This one's going to be Monster Apocalypse. And on February 7th, Brian McLaughlin is going to be doing another Hobby Hangout. We have some very cool, awesome emotes. When we get up to 120 subscriptions, you'll unlock the awesome Riot Quest loot coin. Please be sure to subscribe. For those of you that have Amazon Prime, make sure to re-up your subscription with us because that does not renew. We love seeing some of the awesome subscribers that we've gotten so far. Please keep doing that. We also have some very cool stuff this month for Mini Crate. As you can see, the Savage Conan Mini Crate right here is super awesome. It's one of my favorite figures we've released so far.
Yeah, this one's really cool.
VIP subscriptions or subscribers, words are hard today, get the red Sonya model. Look how sweet that is. That Conan model is it's my second favorite we've done.
Yeah.
The Conan on the throne was super, super awesome.
Conan's an easy go-to, but I am glad that we have one in action now.
Exactly. Not just the King Conan on the throne. For our normal mini crate, we have Medusonia. And VIP models are the Trancer Dancer. So I think that's everything announcement-wise. Be sure when you guys participate in the Hobby Hangout to hashtag everything on Instagram. Whenever you post, hashtag P3 kitbashers or hashtag P3 painters. Also, you can email me if you have any hobby questions or email Brian. You can see the emails here. We're happy to take suggestions, look at things that you guys might want to see on Hobby Hangout, and answer whatever types of questions. I already said that. Sorry, it's Friday. I'm really.
I do have to point out that Danny ended up running a little bit of a fever, so he is championing for you all this morning to be here. Because I think right after this Hobby Hangout, he's going to bust out and go lay down for a while.
Immediately going home after this.
A true people's hero.
All right, so bear with me, guys.
Yeah. So let's tell everybody what we're doing.
All right, so today I'm going to show you guys how to do battle damage and how to make some really, really sweet rubble markers. So you guys can see here. These are some awesome craters and some kind of rough terrain rubble markers that we've now cast in resin. You guys might recognize them from our conventions. We are actually selling these online now. You can get both of these resin casts that you see here. Actually, they do vary. We have some different variations of them. You'll get one of each, and then you'll get a handful of Warjack bits that you can kind of see in my hand here. Mine. We'll give you a handful of those, and then a random rec marker as well, so you can take all of this stuff, kind of bash it together, and customize your awesome Rubble template however you'd like. You can get all of that for $25 on the store. It's a pretty sweet deal.
And I'm posting those links into the chat. And just to reiterate one more time, when you see the picture on the website, it only shows the templates, but you are getting the extra bit Warjack pieces and rec markers.
Hey, Tony, I can't seem to... Oh, there we go. All right, never mind. Sorry, I was having trouble with the chat. There we go. Thank you, Tony.
Sure thing.
All right. So, these are sweet rubble markers. What I'm going to end up doing is walking you guys through how I go about doing some battle damage on some of these parts, and then we will bury them in the sand. So you guys can see that here. Please feel free to chime in with any questions.
Actually, it's awesome that those parts, those old Warjack parts, are nice and bright red. They're easy to see what you're doing.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. How's it going, Tanner?
Not bad. I'm just a little disappointed that he chose Khador Warjack parts. As we all know, Khador Warjacks are indestructible.
Yeah, I did that for you. All right, so one of my favorite things to do when I start doing battle damage, especially on plastic parts, because plastic will kind of, this is our soft plastic. It'll kind of shear and do weird stuff when you take clippers or even wire cutters to it. So I brought 2 different variants. These are just regular old diagonal wire cutters. These are flush cutters. And I bring both of them because they actually both tear up the plastic in different ways, and they'll kind of create different marks. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start kind of just snipping at it, right? And I'm going to remove different parts. And you see how it kind of peels out and does weird stuff? That's the nice thing about this plastic, is you can really just kind of tear and hack at it.
All right, so are you saying that like when you cut at it, it doesn't have like a nice clean cut, it like leaves little bits and things on it?
The main thing is, Tony, and sorry to interrupt you, but the main thing is since it's this flexible plastic, it doesn't just like pop off. It doesn't, you can kind of peel it. You see that?
It curls almost.
It curls, yeah. So you can kind of morph it and bend it and do weird stuff with it. And the different marks that you get from using different types of clippers is really, really useful. You can see I'm hacking at it and really kind of twisting it as I cut.
We might, Danny, if you can work closer to the table, that's going to be better for focus. Or otherwise we're going to have to do a little focus shift. But we got to watch the bill of your hat too.
Adam Murray in chat, Mrs. Hills. So what happened is that when the Infernals came, all of the infernal gates that rose out of the ground, they took the hills with them and balanced it out into an entire flat iron kingdoms. Hashtag flat iron kingdoms, everybody.
Hashtag hill eating battle engine confirmed.
Hills are the bane of my existence. Man, they really are. All right,
we did it to save your minis.
I've started to hack up, really hack up this plastic here. Really kind of gotten these, this kind of curling plastic look, right? We'll go ahead and I want to add this, I want to add a ton of damage to this arm here. So I've got my trusty drill. Now this is a sweet type of drill bit for plastic. It's called a stepper drill. You can see it has all these different steps on it with different measurements. Let's see. There we go. You can see like the different measurement callouts. This is actually super useful for drilling into plastic because it doesn't...
Come up on the screen, Danny. Come up on the screen.
It doesn't take the... It basically doesn't suck your drill bit into the plastic. It drills a lot cleaner. And I'm just kind of moving the drill bit in and out around it. And I'm kind of wiggling it around as I drill.
You just drilling a big hole in that thing like it got shot?
Yeah, but also you can see I kind of took it and moved the drill bit around, so it gives me this weird shaped hole as I did it. And then I'll go into these edges here, and I'll start to clip out some triangular chunks out of this thing.
And right now, so like doing all this cutting and drilling, this is purely for aesthetic and is not so far any... It makes no functional difference. It's just more to make it look like it's torn up and broken.
Exactly. And I could add all sorts of cool bits and bobs into this and make it, like guitar string or something on the inside of this if I wanted to.
Like using the...
Like popping out like wires.
Exactly.
That's
exactly. Cool. You guys can see it. It's not kind of in focus. You guys can see the... it really has that kind of torn out, blasted out look as I cut these like triangular kind of rends in it. I'm also going in with my trusty, curved X-Acto blade or curved scalpel blade, and I'm kind of chiseling out some finer marks with it, some real fine blast kind of scratches and rends in the surface, kind of going in different directions and popping out thin pieces here. Be careful when you're doing this. There we go.
Oh, and yeah, back up into the screen.
There
so
we
got
go.
to ride
so
a little,
see it
little
has
low.
that kind of blast mark now. And then, where this arm will have fallen off of the warjack, I want to make sure I cut that at a weird angle so it looks like it really kind of blew off here.
Now, these little bits that are coming off, are you going to be able to mix that back into the sand or whatever you're going to use to push those parts into, just for some variety, or is that
I could
just
if I
kinda,
want,
yeah.
for sure.
Those little chunks, like caltrip-looking chunks that you dug out of there, could definitely be tossed around as some scrap metal bits.
Yeah, like I'm gonna go ahead and cut off this leg now, so you can see like the foot. We'll remove that and we'll have it. We'll like glue it next to the thigh here.
We have a question in Twitch chat, and he says, will we be able to see some city-style terrain like big arches or houses? I don't know if that's something we could necessarily do to a macro scale on Hobby Hangout, but if we're interested in some urban terrain, that's maybe something that we could try doing on Hobby Hangout here.
I would absolutely love to do a series of videos on, it's not something we've really talked about yet, but I'd really love to do a series on like how we make our houses. But it's not something, the thing that we've wanted to do with Hobby Hangout so far is create bite-sized content.
Higher in the frame, Dan?
What's that?
Up, yeah.
We would like to be able to create, very bite-sized content that anybody can kind of do in an hour, whereas like, doing a building would be a much longer project. It would take multiple weeks to pull off. But it also creates a lot more of a mess because I'm like carving a lot of foam and stuff like that.
We could maybe try something that's like a little lean-to shelter.
I'm surprised
like
that you care about the mess.
basics.
'Cause this is my studio. You just get to come in.
Yeah, he doesn't care about bringing blowtorches.
Make your mess and then take off. Just be like, deal with it, Tony.
I have to clean it up anyway. You're not gonna like foam getting all over the place. So this is kind of a Menite light jack rec marker, and it kind of fits very nicely into one of these crater marks. So I actually kind of want to use this too, and I want to mask this in because we're going to give you guys some sweet rec markers in this kit. And I'm going to do the same thing. Resin, you can do the same thing with your clippers and hack it up a bit more even if you'd like. You can customize it.
And you're just like randomly choosing spots just to tear
just
it
kind
open.
of where I think that stuff might have gotten even more blown up, maybe, just to give it a little bit of variation.
Just be careful you don't dig your clippers like real deep into this because you don't want to shear the whole part in half or anything like that.
Right.
At first I was going to say that might not be a big deal since you're doing damage, but I could see how that you would, it doesn't shear in half. Things aren't flat and filled on the inside like resin is. So
right.
If you did that, you could still use the parts, but you'd have to probably do some more modification like you were talking about with guitar strings, wires,
right.
kind of hollow it out or dig it out.
I'm just taking my knife and I'm scoring it.
So I'm not sure if all of the rec markers have been converted from metal to resin, but I know that it definitely, at least some of them have. I'm
pretty sure they have
a selection
all of them.
yeah, I think it's all of them as well.
Yeah, we have a ton in resin.
Andre Karpinski was asking about that in chat.
Yeah, we had another question. Someone was commenting that the Warjack parts look like grind parts. They do look a lot like grind parts, but I believe this is from the plastic battle group kits that we released at the beginning of Mark III.
Oh, that's Pat. How's Vegas, Pat? How's LVO?
Pat is at LVO?
I think so, yeah.
Gabriel Justy's asking, what's my favorite type of stuff to build? Like small stuff like the Cadorn Cannon or big stuff like the Infernal Tower. Small stuff. I mean, not quite as small as like the Cadorn Cannon, but definitely definitely not, I don't like spending months and months and months on one project. I get bored pretty quick.
You like doing scatter terrain and small projects?
Yeah. I love making little buildings and houses. That's one of my favorite things.
The nice thing about that is if you start building some of that stuff at home and you conglomerate a set of it, it kind of becomes modular on its own, and you can do a lot of different things with the same few parts.
Well, and also for me,
your
it's
table
like,
setups.
I'm also the photographer here, right? And so having a bunch of small, having a bunch of small, smaller parts, smaller things that I can dress into photography is a lot more useful to me than just like one giant, huge table that's very, very difficult to dress and photograph on. Like my favorite projects were actually like, some of my favorites were like right when I started. I made a bunch of company of iron tables that were really, really fun to make. And then, what was the other one? Like we would do releases when we'd have theme forces, right? And those were super fun. Like I really loved making the blind water terrain, like the idols and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Those were really, really fun for me. And still, I think my favorite piece I've ever done for the company were those idols.
Alec Luda wants to see you build landmines.
Oh, right. That was something I wanted to do.
That was one of the things we had talked about.
But I forgot
perhaps
to bring
doing
the thing
today.
over.
That's all right.
You could literally.
You're getting a pass today because you're sick.
You could literally just take. I was just going to take a googly eye again, and I was just going to bury it in sand and paint it metal.
Paint it metal.
Yeah.
Could you, like, if you wanted to give it some ridging or just some texture that isn't just flat surface googly eye, what would you do to it?
What do you mean?
Like if you just wanted to make it the surface of it a little more interesting, so it wasn't just the flat curve of a googly eye. What mod?
I would take a small hole punch out like a little rivet shape, and glue it onto the top. You know, some sort of.
Just give it like a little trigger point, or I don't know anything about landmines.
Exactly, or drill and glue a little piece of wire on there.
Take terrain bits like that, like you suggested with the landmines, and add little rules to them for War Machine games. So like your minefield, anytime you have a trooper model run into it or walk into it, they could roll a d6, and if they roll a 1, then they would cause a blast damage roll or something like that.
Right. Landmine terrain would be super fun.
Or have gas tanks that you can shoot at, and they have a defense and armor stat, and they blow up in like AoE 5 and stuff like that.
We had a question. Oh, Alec wanted to know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Danny. He wanted to know if the pawns or if the craters and rubble are going to be limited runs like the pawns and the acid pools. And I believe,
They are.
yeah, I think it's while we have our supply.
90 total.
So we'll sell them as long as we've got them, but once they're gone, they're gone.
So we're being asked for our personal forces. Do we mix and match bits from other faction jacks? I don't personally. I've seen a lot of people doing that for the mixed theme factions, like Warriors of the Old Faith, and that makes a lot of sense to me. But I don't personally mix and match different factions' bits.
I don't, mostly just because I'm lazy. Like, I like painting, and every once in a while I'll be kind of inspired to do some sort of conversion and change it up. But for the most part, I admit I'm pretty content just to take the parts as they are and just build it the way it's designed. Get to the painting.
A lot of conversions in kitbashed, like with the same factions, different parts, but not usually with other factions.
Let's see. So I wanted this to sink into the ground a little bit more. So I actually just completely drilled out a section so that this can kind of sit in,
You're going to have it partially buried under.
Exactly. Without having to build up a huge mound, I just drilled out the whole surface with my stepper drill.
So when I have done some terrain building and conversion stuff in the past, one of my favorite things about doing battle damage like this and like Danny's doing, drilling a hole into it, is that your margin of error is rather small because you can actually recover mistakes very nicely since you're not trying to it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
So if you kind of dig a little too deep or you cut a little too much into the part more than you intended, you can usually make it work. Can you slide up just a little more in the frame?
Yeah, I intentionally let the resin kind of tell my story. Mm-hmm. Like I'll let it pop in a separate way, right? And it'll kind of inform how it breaks apart, right? And again, sorry guys, I'm really sick, so I'm really struggling with words right now. And I just popped this part off. Oh, another thing that you guys saw that I did, and I just spilled glue all over my hand. Another thing that you guys saw that I did was I used accidentally had a little bit of, or actually intentionally had a little bit of glue overflow on this part, and I used my little puffer thing. My little puffer thing for the baking soda, and used that to accelerate the glue. But also what it does is here, and I'll point at it with the knife, you'll be able to see, I'm sorry, I tried to pull that really fast. The Papa John's. Do love me some Papa John's. It'll act as like a little bit of grit and rust when I paint it. You can actually use baking soda to to create kind of a crusty rust effect when you paint it kind of that red-orange.
For some built-up.
Thank you,
corrosion.
Critic Gaming. That's really exciting that you just picked up 3 sets. I mean, these are actually they're pretty sweet deals when you really think about it. All right, so another thing I want to do is this is black wrap. It's made for blocking out light in film, but you can just use thick tin foil. We just kind of had this around the film studio. Tony, could I see the camera? I need to make sure I'm in frame. Thank you. And I'm just going to tear this up a little bit and kind of crumble it. And I'm actually going to use this in here too. Get a smaller piece. And I'll kind of
like crumpled sheet metal or something.
Exactly. I'll kind of shove that in here to fill that hole a little bit, and then when I paint it, it's going to look like nasty crumbled sheet metal as well.
Can you push that up into the frame just a little more, Danny? Where you're.
What was that, bud?
Can you push up a little higher into the frame? We're just
Yes.
riding down on the bottom
The
there. There you
glitchy
go.
bit says that the Kadoran cannon sounds like an Iron Kingdom's pro wrestler. I'm going to take that a step further and say that should be a Riot Quest character. And also that the Kadoran cannon is taking on Truck Stop Tony this Sunday.
Are you, is that what you're going to do for your Extreme Colossal Wrestler? When
Truck Stop Tony?
No.
We'll just get a model of Tony?
The Kadoran cannon.
That would be sick. I was going to use a Victor anyways, so that kind of makes sense.
Did you ever come up with more puns for me for what Extreme Colossal Wrestler I'm going to do?
I still think the Volcadan is the best one.
The Volcadan
Yep.
or the Dancadile?
The Dancadile's a good one, too.
Dracadani. Tony, it's not going to stop. You will have to cancel me to get me to stop doing this.
I thought we did.
Right? So now I'm going to mix up some epoxy here. And this is just a generic, 3-hour epoxy putty.
I had a question about the foil because, like you said, so that the black foil that Danny's using is cinefoil, so it's something that we keep here in the studio to control light. It's a little expensive just to kind of buy to use for these kind of parts. So, but I know that you've said one of the good things about it is that it's already primed black,
Yes.
and it's pretty heavy duty.
It takes
Foil.
paint. Takes paint really well.
Is there a way for someone to get this effect using regular kitchen tinfoil?
Totally. I do it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying is you can just use tin foil. We just tend to have access to some scraps of black wrap around. So I use that because it's already basically pre-primed. But you can totally just take the standard automotive primer, right? And prime, prime tin foil.
Yeah. And while it is good, I do want to say it is pretty cost prohibitive what you could buy a can of primer for and some regular kitchen tinfoil or one roll of cinefoil would get you a lot of primer and a lot of kitchen tinfoil.
Right. Love me some black wrap, man. That stuff's so useful.
And the kitchen tinfoil is multi-useful as well.
Also, yeah, you can't use the cinefoil in your kitchen.
Right.
Or at least you shouldn't.
Probably not.
We don't recommend it.
It's got primer on it.
Yeah. Throw that in your oven. That's sweet. All right, so I've mixed up this epoxy, and I'm just going to kind of shove it on in here. Keep your hands wet. The nice thing about this type of epoxy is it slurries nicely with water. You can see how nice and easy it is to smooth in there.
And people can't see you just dipping your finger into some water,
Yep,
right?
just dipping my finger in some water. So here we go. And I'm just going to kind of bury these parts a little bit more, mesh them in a little bit more naturally.
And I'm guessing your putty there doesn't have to be super rigid or anything to match the cast because you're going to put that gritty flocking over it anyways.
What? I didn't understand anything you
So
said.
that cast piece that you have is very rigid, like dirt, right? It's got all kinds of like rubbling in it. Or
Yes.
It's got a lot of texture.
texture, yes. And so you don't really have to add that to your putty for the most part because you're going to put flock over it, or are you going to texture your putty?
No, I'm going to texture it a bit. Just to give it kind of a ripply look to it, and then I will add sand on top of it. So we'll bury this in a little bit here. I'm keeping my tools wet as well. but not too wet. You can see I like splashed it off on the side of the cutting board here.
And so what's your, as you're laying these down and deciding where to put the putty, because you're not putting it in a like 360 all the way around. So kind of what's your thought process on which side you're putting it and where you're putting it at?
That's a good question. How should I describe this? Basically, wherever I think, all right, if this part exploded and got buried in the dirt after after the big explosion, like I try to tell that, how should I explain this? I try to kind of push the story along compositionally, like where this, all right, if this leg exploded, I think it would be, all right, the easiest way to explain it is what detail do I want people to see more? I'm not going to cover up, like, I think that this foot looks kind of cool, so I'm not going to bury it on this side. I'd rather bury it on this side is the easiest way to explain that, honestly.
We got a question that says, would you rather use epoxy or two-part Neatitite? I think the answer to that is probably different situations.
Well, two-part Neatitite is an epoxy. This just happens to be a much cheaper, much softer epoxy. So for terrain, I'm gonna use, something that I can get in a giant bucket.
Do you think you would sculpt parts onto like character models or miniatures like this, like you would with Neatitite?
I do.
You would? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but I tend to, since it's all epoxy based, I'll mix the two together. And a lot of I really like mixing this with our brown putty, because it'll help. Like this smooths a lot faster, and it's a lot more soft than the brown putty.
Are you saying that you can use this to kind of cut the hardness of
Yes.
brown putty, or you
And
can
it helps
add
it-
brown putty to make this more solid?
Exactly.
So if our brown putty is sandable, when you mix it down with this, does it remain sandable?
This stuff's even more sandable than our brown putty.
Oh, that's awesome. And can you pick this two-part epoxy up that you've got here at like any craft store? Or?
No, you have to order it online. Tony, if there are like 4 brand names, can I mention all of them?
Sure.
All right, so this is Epoxy Sculpt. It's also, you can get Magic Sculpt. It's also very similar to something called Milliput. And they're just two-part epoxy putties. And the reason why I use this, like every different epoxy putty has its use. But the reason I recommend some of this for terrain in conjunction, and I still use our brown putty a ton, is like I said, it's just cheaper. Like I can get 2 big, big tubs here, right? Like I'll just show you the size of the tub. I mean, this is just part A, like you can see how big that is, and it's like $40 to get all of that, right? Both parts. So for $40, I can sculpt a ton of this stuff, and it's just it's really useful for terrain because you can see how easily it smooths. It really slurries up with water. I've even made like a paste. You can mix it with water and really like mash it up, and you can paint it into some of your cracks and stuff.
Is this the same stuff that you were mixing up using on the Infernal Tower when you were building it out?
No, actually,
No, okay.
Kind of. Okay, so I used a. Oh, thank you. That was the 4th one. There's this one made by Smooth On, and it's super light.
Yeah, you said that was kind of like the
It's
super light,
it was
spongy.
like sculpting with
Yeah.
with marshmallow fluff,
Yeah.
but it's also epoxy based, so it's rock solid. But then to get those finer details, the finer wisps, I would actually roll up this stuff, and I'd kind of sculpt these wisps on top of it after it was dry. So that's kind of what I was doing there.
Well, that's cool to know because that's not typically something that I think about very often when doing building. Is it's kind of like I need some epoxy, and then it's just this general epoxy or putty checkbox. And I would think that for different applications you might need different stuff, but combining all of them
Yes.
on one project is like base parts. You use this lighter one, and as you get more detailed, you might even change your epoxy just for the same part.
That's exactly right. No, and for the most part, if I was to pick a favorite epoxy, it would be our brown putty. I mean, that stuff you can use for everything, and I'm not just saying that. Like
Our
it's
physical engineers actually say the same thing.
it's so nice. Like there's a reason why our physical engineers use it. It's really good stuff. But I mean, terrain, it's like I don't have to be quite as precise. And this stuff, the nice thing about this is it sands so nicely and it dries rock hard. Rock hard.
Can you push up into there? You go. Perfect. Like a read in my mind.
And so I'm just meshing in this rec marker more into the surface.
I would like to see some more Iron Kingdom's wrestler names from chat. That's what I'd like to see.
Bring it. Names and single sentence descriptions of their entrance music, costume details.
Whatever you guys can come up with, and we will judge it live.
We may even steal ideas. I didn't say that. That may not happen. I didn't say
I think they'd be honored if we did.
Well, one of the coolest things I've seen is, in terms of going back to like putties and stuff, is one of our traditional sculptors that we still use. He sculpts a lot of our like gator men. He'll actually use green neatite and mixes it with magic sculpt because it helps our physical engineers be able to sand it and engineer it better, because the green neatite, like we've talked about on stream before, is very flexible and kind of has a springiness or a gumminess to it. But if you mix in this type of putty into it, it holds its place a lot nicer, and it sands super well. So the other problem with the green, I really don't like green neatite. I can't remember the last time I used it, and if I do use it, I always mix it with Magic Sculpt or Epoxy Sculpt, because it sands terribly, and being able to sand and polish is very, very important, especially when you're working traditionally and you have to like use a jeweler's saw like this to cut your part apart. Cut off an arm. You have to be able to cut it nicely and then sand back and like get your test fit, nice. And so our traditional sculptor that we still use a lot swears by that method, and it's also to help our engineers out a lot. Not to get too technical on you. But. All right, so now that I've got this kind of laid out, I'm going to add some irregular kind of texture to the putty to help it kind of. Well, when I put sand on it, I don't want this to be this really, really smooth blob. You know what I mean? So I'm going to. Well, and I kind of made a mistake here where I put this over a rock. And so I kind of need to sculpt back some of that rock texture. So I'm going to take my sculpting tool here, and I'm just going to kind of follow the flow of the rock with the side of the sculpting tool and try to add some texture there, if that makes sense.
Brother Chaplain Kage has a couple of finishing moves for Siege has the Bunker Buster and Dragos Dragodovich with the Dragos Dragdown. That would be a great match,
That's
honestly.
awesome.
Dragos versus Siege, that'd be pretty hypey.
Dude, I want to
It would be explosive.
So our friends that we made at Gen Con, Tanner, the wrestler friends.
Oh, yes. Don't remind me.
Tanner and I were hanging out at Gen Con, because if you can't already tell, Tanner and I are kind of a unit at conventions now. And we met these awesome, oh no!
Doug Hamlin has entered the studio.
Just walked in the room.
This is trouble.
So we made these wrestler friends, and they taught us how to play their game, and we're going to teach them how to play Extreme Colossal Wrestling. So I'm going to bring a set.
Is that why you want me to learn how to play it?
Oh, yeah. Say hi.
It's Doug Hamilton.
Also, don't get too close because I'm super sick right now, Doug.
You have your very own mic over here, Doug.
Nice.
You have your own microphone.
Yeah, we set you up. Doug's going to join us.
So
You
for
don't get
everybody,
your own microwave before I get my own microwave. That's
so
not
for everybody who doesn't know, Doug Hamilton has probably sculpted some of your favorite Privateer Press sculpts. He works out of house, so he is very seldom here with us at the HQ. So it is wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, nice to see you, buddy.
So good to see all of you guys. I'm happy to be visiting.
How was getting to the airport? I know it was snowing pretty bad, you said.
Yeah, it was pretty bad at home. We had about an hour of de-icing before we took off, and then when we finally got into Seattle last night, the gate we were supposed to go to had a broke down playing in it, so we were
So
delayed even
awesome.
further.
So no travel problems. Good to hear.
Yeah, no problems.
So while we have you here, would you mind telling us about what you might have been working on recently that's already been announced, and anything you had fun with or challenges you faced while sculpting them?
And I have to think about that.
Man, you're coming in hot. Like, you're actually making him work immediately.
Somebody give me a
What is
microphone to
this
put in front of his face.
Formal interview.
I was just texting
jeez
Danny
Louise.
yesterday while you were streaming, or the day before yesterday.
So bad. Tony had to cut me off because I was like, I'm not allowed to read these texts that Doug is sending me. And
Right.
Tony's like, no.
Well, the reality is I'm pretty deep into Warcaster right now, so there's not a lot I can talk about on that until
Big
we
secrets.
say anything.
I know what faction you're on, and it's so cool.
Well, yeah, but the stuff that we have seen be sculpted is super exciting here.
I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm having a blast on that table right now.
I know. As soon as you sent that, I was like, "That's for Warcaster." I was saying that in my mind. I'm like, "What is that for?" And
What'd
you're
you
like,
think of that?
I-
That
I-
crane?
I think it looks cool.
It's going to be neat.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
pretty
super
exciting.
excited for it. I was just telling.
Are those terrain spoilers, Danny?
I don't
Is
have
it the
terrain.
very first terrain spoiler?
I mean,
I don't see authorization paperwork for you to talk
I
about
didn't
terrain
really
spoilers.
say much. I mean, what? You're going to see stuff in like a week. It's
Right, I know it's coming soon.
like,
Before I left yesterday, my boss, Ron Cruzy, was like, "We need all of this done by this date." I was like, "How's that going to happen?" He's like, "You're going to make it happen."
right.
And that's why Doug's our hero.
I mean, there's a
No
reason.
pressure.
I mean, Doug's probably you're probably our fastest. I mean, Doug is known to be a very, very, very fast sculptor.
Well, I'm going to have to get really fast because I have a lot to do.
He's got his little hand exercise things where you
You
working
know,
on
we
those
don't-
fingers.
We don't talk about that.
He's working on his quick draw.
As far as other stuff that I've been working on, I think most of it's releasing or released. Like I think this month is Medusonia for Mini Crate. I think.
Oh,
she
did you do
comes
that?
out-
I like that model.
I don't know. Did I?
As he shows us his
As he
Medusa
shows us his
forearm tattoo.
forearm sleeve of
A
Medusa's
giant
face.
Medusa tattoo on my forearm.
I could just imagine somebody in a meeting being like, "Yeah, we want to do this Medusa Absolonia here, and we're going to give it to not Doug. We're going to give it to somebody else."
But, I do love that there are like, oh, hi Getz. Getz just jumped
Getz.
chat.
Oh, I
Said,
love
wait,
Getz.
nobody canceled Danny yet? Not
We are
I've
working
been
on it tirelessly.
trying.
We haven't told him.
Doug, can you tell us about the Fiora 4 sculpt? Did you sculpt that?
Nope.
Oh, well,
I'm
Alec
free.
Buddha, he can't tell you about the Fiora 4 sculpt.
Sorry.
Well, what I was going to say is, like, Ron has worked with you. You've worked with Ron for so long now, our sculpting director, that there are sculpts that we know, correct me if I'm wrong, have to go to Doug. Like there are characters that you've just done forever that Cruzy knows you'd pitch a fit.
Right.
If you didn't get.
And
Would
sometimes
you say that you get first dibs?
I mean, on certain.
it depends on the
characters.
art. Yeah, there's certain characters that I'll put my foot down. Or
You always get Scar, correct? Like, for the most
at
part?
this point, probably yes. I can also send Matt a message, and Matt and I'll talk about some sculpts or some artwork that he's done or that we've seen, and then I'll tell Ron, I'm like, Matt and I were talking about this, and he really thinks I should work on this model, and so,
What's
so
Cruzy gonna
sometimes
do?
I work
Yeah.
around it to
Exactly,
get what I want.
exactly.
But
It sounds like you could just lie and be like, "Hey, Ron,
Yeah.
Matt told me I was working on this."
sometimes. But
Make your own rules.
usually, if there's something I really want, I get it.
Right, right.
There's some cases where I'm like, well, I kind of want this. What do you think? And Ron will say, well, it's got a lot of stuff that you don't sculpt very well, so no.
Cloth.
Honest
Cloth.
communication. That's important.
Yes, it might be cloth.
Oh, no. I thought
Hey, your
your,
cloth's looked really good lately, man.
Anything that has clothes, I don't sculpt.
your poncho on the Wolf with No Name is fantastic.
Thank you.
I like the tassels, too.
Well, I have a poncho just like that, actually. So
Is that where you drew your inspiration?
I was gonna
Yes.
say, did you
Yes.
did you take a selfie wearing it for reference?
I'm not commenting on that because then you're gonna want the selfie.
Right, exactly.
He's just wearing the smile or the poncho.
So, right.
That's it. Like,
And he's in the same pose where his legs are all bent out.
please come in to when we run
weird, but it's true.
Iron Painter this year. Please just wear the poncho instead of the fur jacket.
It's funny. You know how many people send me pictures now when they're out and they'll see a fur jacket somewhere, and they'll post it on social media and then tag me. And they're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "I think it looks good."
Everyone got tired of sending them to Macklemore. Now they send them to you.
Well, I'm more popular than he is now.
Oh,
I love. I love Getz just leaning into this chat right now. For those of you who don't know, Getz is one of our freelance writers and worked here on staff for a long time.
we miss Getz.
love
He's one of my
Getz.
favorite people in the world, but he's just like laying it. Is that Hamilton whispering chocolatey words in my ears? I am into every part of that sentence.
There were many lonely nights where Getz and I stood outside discussing life. Many of them. Miss
You've
those
been
days.
asked if you've ever been tempted to put your face on a mini, and I think that he's too busy putting other people's faces on
I have a
minis.
follow-up.
And that's how we got Chad of the Feast.
I'm gonna adjust Alex's question, and I'm gonna say, have you ever thought about it? And then, have you ever actually done it?
Are there any Dougs running
Are there
around
any
our line?
Doug mini, like just alternate face sculpts?
I don't think there's any true Dougs running around. There are some Easter eggs that I'll put on models.
I don't know. Kozlov looks pretty Dougish.
I heard the scrambling from afar as people like hit their collections, going, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
My
there's.
dreams of Jason Souls tokens come true.
Oh my God.
I've actually thought about that. I could do some alternate Souls heads for different infantry. That would be.
Well, I'm telling you, man,
Yeah.
and I brought this up on live stream yesterday, too.
The Danawar army.
I'm sculpting my face, but like that stupid grin that I had, like the
I'm
face.
familiar with it.
Yeah, exactly.
He's looking at it right now.
My stupid face, which is every face I make, but
I've been seeing that face for a long time, Danny.
so long. But and I want to just print it and sprue it onto some of our production casts, like at the very end of it, so that they just keep casting my faces, so I can glue them to Mana Wars and make a Danawar army.
It's terrible.
It's
I think it's fantastic.
There's been talk. There's always some models floating around where I've modified them. I just don't. I usually only show them at conventions after hours. So
All right, so you guys can see here, I took the putty and I kind of masked in our edges on some of these bits that we've kind of beat up here, and then I took this ball stylus and tried to give it a little bit of texture. It's got two different ball ends, and it allowed me to kind of give it this dirt texture, which will help us when we put our glue on it, and our sand. So we'll get a little bit of throwing
did you
stuff.
say inner sand, man?
And our God, sweet.
All right, you got me with that one, Doug. I couldn't hold that in.
Yeah,
Also, I don't know what it is about you, but I literally in one sentence almost just cursed twice.
Is that wood glue,
And I
Dan?
stopped.
That's always my fear when you and I are in the same room together or in the same state together.
So bad. I'm
Is that
out of
wood
control.
glue, Danny?
This is wood glue in a condiment squeezy bottle.
Was it?
You should write not mayonnaise on there.
Yeah,
It
right?
looks like mayonnaise.
Yeah. Danny's.
Nobody wants Danny's. Nobody wants Danny's.
I
gonna
do that.
bleep
I
that.
do that for Tony. It's his favorite thing when I have. So, Doug, since you've been here last, and this should not be surprising to you, I've developed neurosis where I have to put my name into every single pun I can, and it's really, really obnoxious. But mostly, I just do it on live stream to bother Tony.
That surprised me that you would do anything obnoxious. I mean, really.
I missed this. Doug, how long are you in town for?
A couple days.
You're just doing today and then the weekend?
I'm
or?
I'm here to collect some pre-release
Skulls.
models. Some pre-release models. I'm going to play some games with friends up here this weekend. I'm going up to Vancouver on Monday to see the Stanley Cup champion Blues play Vancouver.
Nice.
Right.
And then I go back home Tuesday. It's just
Wow,
kind
okay.
of just kind of a getaway weekend. I found a really, really cheap ticket to come up.
Nice.
So
Heck
Did you bring
yeah.
your Riot Quest crew, Doug?
Thanks for coming and
Did
hanging
not.
out with
I
us
didn't have enough room.
at work today. Then
But you probably have extra. Yeah, I'm always
do have
happy to
extra.
stop in, and
Yeah.
I haven't ever. This is the first time I've seen the new place.
Come on
It's
over,
sweet.
Doug. I'll make nachos. We'll play Riot Quest.
I actually have a Riot Quest crew now because of you. At Gen Con, I started grabbing Riot Quest
I'm
stuff.
just out here doing God's work. What can I say?
Well, we appreciate you.
Yeah, you're so modest.
Said no one ever.
Fortunately, I couldn't hear all that trash talking you were doing about me 2 days ago.
About what?
I don't remember because I didn't.
He was
I just
talking
remember
about
some comments about Hamilton. Oh, he's at the chiropractor,
cage match.
which may have been true. But
It came back to the. I remember.
He says he'd smoke you in a
ago.
fight.
Yes, that is what I said.
Basically.
I definitely said that that's how that would go.
well, it sounds like we have something special for locking up. I mean, he's young, but
I think that ring you're building is going to have to get way bigger.
yeah, this is going to be a good time this year. I mean, wasn't our Danny? That kind of fits in with our theme that we were talking about for this year at Lock and Load.
Whoa.
For the iron,
Yeah, for
the
the
iron
painter?
painter.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, you and I need to start talking about that this year.
Right,
That'll
because
be fun.
it was great last year, but this year, now that it's all ours.
Yeah.
Is this about developer boxing again? Because I'm still in full support of that idea.
I actually, my brain
love
is
to
so
box with
on
developers.
Warcaster that honestly, I can't even remember what he's talking about right now.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, if we talked about it
Fight Club.
earlier than
That's
yesterday,
right.
then yeah.
Yes, now I remember. The custom cat. Yeah.
Fight Club.
It's perfect. That's exactly right.
They never said you couldn't whisper about it, just that you couldn't talk about it.
Fur coats.
It's perfect. Perfect.
What are you guys making today?
I'm showing how to do battle damage, and we're making these kind of rubble markers, basically.
Oh, nice.
Rubble jack parts.
And I'm actually going to use this opportunity to remind people who may have not caught it at the beginning that you can buy these parts right now in our online store. You can get the Rubble templates, 2 Rubble templates, along with a handful of old Warjack bits and some Warjack rec markers to use for doing some conversion and terrain projects.
Danny is now sprinkling some oregano on his rubble markers there.
That's not oregano. This is Seattle.
So this is just playground sand from the hardware store.
He actually went to a kid's sandbox and scooped it out himself.
It's a litter box.
Dude, I actually have a big thing of
Kitty litter works
I have
really
a big
well.
thing of kitty litter up in my workstation. It's got a
Clean-
really good texture to
So
it.
you're
I
watering
recommend
down the
clean.
I don't. I recommend have fun and make it stinky.
Our new Doom Reaver sculpts on the horizon. You guys just got new Doom Reaver sculpts. What are you talking about?
Damn, Tanner just shut that down. That was about as aggressive as I've ever heard you with the community. Also, one of the nice things I want to bring up is you'll note that I didn't let the epoxy dry at all before I started sprinkling or putting glue on it and sand on it. One of the nice things about using epoxy is it's a chemical cure, so it actually doesn't even need to be exposed to air to dry. So you can just go right over it.
Cover it with glue and flock.
And it'll
no
dry
problem.
under the glue.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're watering down and applying with a brush your wood glue
I am.
there?
I am.
Do you often apply flock with wood glue instead of PVA glue?
Whatever I have around. It
really
all
doesn't
works
matter
the
to you
same.
then?
If I have, so flock I apply with PV. I actually take matte medium and I thin it down a ton, and then I use that because it's super, super transparent and it's matte, whereas white glue has a sheen to it.
I never thought of that before.
Yeah, and so I like to be able to sprinkle different colors and layers of flock all over so you can actually see some of the dirt, under it or whatever. And if I do that and I have something glossy or something, tan colored like wood glue, it's going to look really irregular. But if I'm just laying down sand that I'm going to paint later, I actually tend to use wood glue over white glue because I found that or PVA glue because I found that it's more durable. That was a really long-winded answer, but it depends on, which I've never been known to.
So you like to use sticky glue?
No, he uses not sticky glue. He
Yes.
wants the flock to fall
glue
out.
is sticky, Doug. I hate you.
So in the past, I've used mixing medium to add gravel to the bases of my minis. It seems to work all right, but is there a reason why that isn't just a good replacement or at least an appropriate replacement for
You just
glues?
use straight mixing medium?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
straight mixing medium.
Here's why. Because mixing medium costs $4 or $4.50 for a tiny little thing of it from us.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally.
So you should use
like,
it exclusively for your flocking and never use anything else.
I mean, that's the
Stock up while you can.
Heavily use it.
I can get a gallon. I can get a gallon of like white glue or wood glue for $15 at the hardware store. Oh, and the reason why I like to use playground sand is it has all sorts of different. It's really cheap, so it has. They don't strain it or anything, so it has a lot of different grits to it, which makes it a lot more natural. Now, our previous terrain maker, who I've now become really good friends with, Michael Archer, he showed me.
Archer!
I love him so much. He showed me a really cool trick where he actually just uses dirt from outside and puts it in the oven and dries it out, and he'll just straight up use like dirt,
Baked dirt.
and he'll get all sorts of weird textures doing that. So, that's one of the nice things. Also, if you get the playground sand, you can use a strainer and strain it so you can get different grits. You can like just have the more gritty stuff to put around the edge of the rocks. God, this is a train wreck. I'm having so much trouble speaking right now. I really need to go home.
Yeah, usually you don't stop talking, and now I come in and you're kind of babbling.
I'm dying.
Is it because you're sick?
Maybe we don't have to
He's
cancel
pulling a
Danny.
Sean Lynch.
Because I saw you at the hospital in Everett the other day, and now you're back down here. It's okay. I'll explain it off air. You shouldn't have left the hospital though.
Yeah, I could die. Oh my God, I just got that joke. You're a terrible person. I am patient zero.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is.
I'm here to take care of that.
Our art director called me the Outbreak Monkey today, from the movie Outbreak, which I also think is a good band name. So another sculpting question. If you only have a unit of, say, 4 models like Widowmakers, why only make 3 models and duplicate 1? I'm sure the answer is money, but...
I got this one.
Yeah, that's all you.
That was before I started here. Next question. No, seriously, that. I mean, it's just a policy that privateers kind of followed for 20 years now. So, yes, it would be cool to have a different sculpt for every model, but I'm sure cost is the first thing that went into it.
It's less about production cost, I think, because I mean, even that is part of the issue where we would have to set up a whole nother
It's a whole
set
different
of parts,
mold,
which means that digital engineers would have to break those parts apart, set them into parts. We'd have to make molds for all of those different parts, as opposed to just putting 2 of the same model in the unit. And also, that's money that you have to pay a sculptor to sculpt a whole nother character.
And also, while it may seem like a small thing, but for every part, there's a place to store the part. So if you take every unit we've ever made and then add that many more bins of parts, and it all just
It equals
kind of
square
stretches
footage.
out to
Yeah.
to cost being a big factor.
Yeah,
Right.
it goes all the way from sculpting to real estate.
I just had this conversation or a similar conversation with Ron Cruzy because of the Warcaster stuff I'm working on has a lot of unique elements to it, and there's things that I'm like, why aren't we duplicating this? And we're not. We're actually making. I'm trying to be vague here on purpose, but they are unique models. Whatever the situation is, it's not really, at least at this stage, it's not a duplicate. It's all new stuff. It's all different. It's all. All right, I can't say any more on that. Never mind. It's going to be cool.
It's getting a little leaky in here.
Warcaster is going to be really neat.
Hey, I've been really good at not saying anything about Warcaster.
It took you 2 minutes of you being in here for me to do my first ever accidental spoiler on air. Literally you walked in and I'm just like, word vomit. What did you think about this cool thing, Doug?
Nobody is surprised. That happens when you and I get together, though. It's
bad. So as you guys can see, we kind of meshed in the surface. It looks pretty seamless. You can see the tin foil sheet metal poking out of the ground. I was able to mask the hole drilled by just shoving a bunch of glue in there. That's going to be really stable. It's going to look like it's coming out of that mound of dirt. You can add a lot of character and also mess with your opponent by putting parts of their dead models onto your Rubble template. Give this stuff some personality. We've got a few different variants that we're going to be putting on online for sale right now. Tony, do you mind putting up that link again? You guys can pick up all of that. It'll be one of each of these guys, a random, rec marker, and a handful of old Warjack bits for you to customize your Rubble template however you would like.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this newest edition of Hobby Hangout. And stay tuned for more next time. I've got some really cool stuff planned for you guys.
Thanks for watching.
Woo, we love you, Danny.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching.